Good evening from South Orange, New Jersey. We are making use of FaceTime and YouTube. And Darren has asked me to request that you subscribe. Is that right? Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe. Push the subscribe button underneath the picture. Okay, so we will begin with a prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West by the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfish wishes. May the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living there, together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we had hoped and wished. Now the Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One entered the Samadhi which examines the Dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, "How should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge?" And Avalokiteshvara answered, "Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form, form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear, no transcendent falsity, and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed. Tadyata Om Gate Gate Para Samgate Bodhiswaha. O Shariputra, This is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, the whole gathering and the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. And now we generate bodhicitta. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world.
Ow! Yeah, these are temporary.
Everything is temporary.
Yeah, no shit. I wish I
You are.
The word is ow. The new level. And later
You
on,
feeling all right?
I was 2.5 hours in the chair. With that crap and the taste is still there on my thing. Anyway. Buddy, you're a good guy, but not now.
So, we are discussing Beyond Religion, Ethics for a Whole World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Yes, sir?
Michelle Parlabine for subscribing.
Sorry?
What?
Thank Michelle Parlabine for subscribing.
Thank you, Michelle Parlabine, for having subscribed.
And I have a book for her. She comes Saturday.
So, we got to page 55. Are you following on your phone?
No, I was just checking.
The recording?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it look?
Fine.
How is my profile?
Bueno.
Yeah.
Too big on the nose,
Why
it'll
not?
take some more.
Yeah, you turn this way. There you go.
Could be a good way today.
Okay.
See, I believe I'm subscribed to this already.
So,
That's what it says.
compassion training. Just before compassion training, however, since universal compassion involves gradually expanding one's circle of concern until it finally embraces the whole of humanity, it needs constant cultivation. Using our intelligence and our conviction of its necessity and value, we gradually learn to expand and extend our concern, first to our close family, then to all those whom we come into contact with, including especially our enemies, and then to our entire human family, and even to all beings. So this regards the cultivation of compassion, universal compassion, compassion that comprises the universe. And within a spiritual path, you can seek a state of freedom from suffering. You can
Modulate.
there's an echo
What?
from the room next door.
Next door?
You can seek your own freedom from suffering. You can seek a state of peace. You can seek a state of contentment. That's well and fine, but here what we're working towards is developing some sort of responsibility towards others. We're this process of beyond religion, the secular ethics that His Holiness is introducing here, is one that aims us not towards seeking our own happiness and peace, but one that works towards our assumption, our assuming responsibility to help others. What His Holiness has introduced so far is the whole notion that our own happiness is ultimately derived from that our devotion to others, our concern for others, brings us the greatest happiness. Yes, we depend on others for our survival. We depend on others' love for our happiness. We depend on others' compassion from when we are born through our whole lives to the end of our lives. The love and compassion shown by others is what enables us to have to survive in life. However, it is the love that we show to others that brings us the greatest happiness. And a feeling of love, a feeling of compassion towards others is not, it may be something that we have at some level. We might see others and feel some kind of empathy towards them, but to really develop compassion being the wish to remove the suffering of others, and to develop that attitude towards not just those whom we love and are close to, but towards people whom we have no real feelings towards people whom we really dislike, people who cause us problems. That has to be worked on, that has to be developed, and that's what His Holiness is teaching us here. How to, first of all, recognize the importance of developing this, and then implementing the techniques by which we do this. So in this paragraph, as His Holiness is teaching, we must begin with a feeling of compassion towards people who are close to us, and then we have to extend that out to include even people we dislike, our enemies, and the entirety of humanity, and all sentient beings. And really, we can practice, as we walk along and we see an ant walking on the pathway, we can think that little ant wants happiness as much as I do, and that little ant is as restricted and limited in his or her ability to do much about it. And we develop a wish to be able to help the ant. There's not much we can do, but we can use the ant to open our hearts. And so the training has to be one that encompasses all. We see squirrels running around, and they look cute, and they look as if they're having fun, and they leap from branch to branch and from tree to tree. I love watching. I love the idea that squirrels are not very concerned about the fact that this is one tree and that's one tree, and that they don't have to come down from this tree to go up to that tree. They can just go through the branches and leap from tree to tree, and it looks as if they're having fun. But I'm sure they're doing something. They're collecting the seeds that they then put underground to survive on when it's hard to find food, and it's all survival. And so, as we're working towards developing compassion, we have to work towards developing compassion for squirrels. I remember walking around Upper Dharamsala with Chungla Rinpoche once, and there were a bunch of monkeys, and I hadn't been feeling well, and I went to the doctor, and as we passed the monkeys, Rinpoche said, "Oh, when the monkeys get sick, they don't have a doctor to go to." And it just hit me that yes, when the monkeys get sick, they just get sick, and then they die, and there's no one to help them. The extraordinary help that we depend on, that we take for granted, is not there for most, even so many people, let alone animals and different creatures. So in this exercise, or in this, as we assume this responsibility, this sort of ethical responsibility towards others, we really, it's not one that will come naturally. It's one that we really have to work at. So, compassion training. Those with religious faith have rich resources for the cultivation of compassion, and religious approaches can also be great resources for humanity as a whole. But religion is not necessary for cultivating compassion. In fact, secular techniques for compassion training are already in use, and their effectiveness has even been scientifically demonstrated. It seems that developing inner values is much like physical exercise. The more we train our abilities, the stronger they become. Neuroscientific research conducted by my old friend Professor Richard Davidson, for example, has demonstrated that even short periods of compassion training, as brief as 2 weeks, can lead to observable changes in the patterns of the brain, as well as to a greater inclination towards charitable giving. A friend of mine went to Madison, Wisconsin, where Professor Richard Davidson's lab is, and he had himself tested for the effects of his meditation, the physical effects within the brain of his meditation. And he suggested to me that I do so too, and I said, I have no desire to have it well documented how little effect.
Why, and the world then knows it.
Yes,
It's worse for you. It's
I was amazed that this guy had the confidence to never.
Matthew?
Sorry?
Matthew, you talking
No. I will not give his name.
about? Okay.
I'm hopeful that such research may pave the way for the introduction of compassion training in schools, which could be very worthwhile. Modern education is premised strongly on materialistic values, yet, as I often point out, it is vital that when educating our children's brains, we not neglect to educate their hearts. And a key element of educating their hearts has to be nourishing their compassionate nature. This is a subject to which I will return. Okay. So, if you have comments, questions, whatever.
They said when in that lab, I think, Alan Wallace or someone else, when they had the meditators meditate on compassion, the part of the brain that lit up was the part that tells you to start moving. In other words, I forgot the name of it now, but there's a section of the brain when you're gonna get up and do something. That's what was lighting up, you know? It's very, I gotta look that up, because I opened my mouth about it before. So I'll find out, but that's very interesting. It's an actual, I'm gonna do it thing. It's not just, oh, it's there.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
compassion is the wish to remove the suffering of others. So there are different sort of levels of it. You can say, "Oh, I wish I could remove the suffering of others." There is, I must remove the suffering of others. And then there is the determination to work towards the attainment of the ability to work to remove the suffering of others. We have to be humble. We have to accept the fact that we're limited, that we aren't able to. We really can do very little. I mean, I just talked about squirrels and ants. It's very touching when you see, you walk through the monastery, and when there's a path of ants across a walkway, they will immediately put some sort of marker on either side so that no one steps on the path of ants.
Monks do that?
Yeah.
That's very nice.
And so there's a real awareness of a feeling for life, even these subtle forms of life. But so that's, a level of engaging in compassion. But then there is a recognition that there's so little that we can do, and that we have to work on ourselves to actually be able to better help others. And that the whole Mahayana tradition is the greater. So one can either work towards a freedom from one's own suffering, and even within with that as one's aim, one has compassion towards others, one has compassion towards all beings, but the focus of one's practice is not towards attaining the ability to be of benefit to all beings. One's focus is towards attaining freedom from cyclic existence, freedom from suffering, freedom from the vicious circle of life that we are stuck in. So with that as one's aim, yes, one has a feeling for others. Yes, one recognizes the suffering they're experiencing. Yes, the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, and the second, the true cause of suffering, are something that one is aware of, and one is aware of it in respect to oneself, and one is aware of it in respect to others. But the aim is towards recognizing that since our suffering is caused, if we remove the cause, we will not experience the suffering. And so the path, the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, the path is a path that leads to our attaining freedom from suffering by removing the causes. So the practitioner seeking his or her freedom from suffering recognizes the suffering of others, but his or her aim, his or her objective is not to attain a state where he or she can really benefit all sentient beings. The objective is seeking freedom from their own suffering. So here, to develop this other objective, to develop this other motivation, one really has to work at it. And the thing one really has to work at is the development of compassion. So we've gone over this before, but I'm going to go back to Tsongkhapa's presentation on the cultivation of compassion. In order to understand the cultivation of compassion, you must know the following topics. The object of compassion is living beings who experience misery through any of the three kinds of suffering. The suffering of change, and the all-pervasive suffering. The subjective aspects are thinking, how nice it would be if living beings were free from suffering. May they be free from suffering, and I will cause them to be free from suffering. These are three levels of compassion. And we are working, the real aim here is the third. I will cause them to be free from suffering. That is what we are working at cultivating within ourselves. The steps of cultivating compassion are first to cultivate it towards friends, then towards those beings for whom you have neutral feelings, and next towards enemies. When you have equal compassion for your enemies and friends, cultivate it gradually towards all living beings in the 10 directions. So Kamalashila, in his stages of meditation, following the discourses on knowledge, set out this way of gradually cultivating impartiality, love, and compassion while distinguishing specific objects of meditation. It is an extremely important point. If you train in these attitudes of impartiality, love, and compassion without distinguishing and taking up specific objects of meditation, but only using a general object from the outset, you will just seem to generate these attitudes. So basically, we have to really think about individuals. We have to think about individual friends and really recognize that just as we wish to be happy and wish not to suffer, they wish to be happy and don't wish to suffer, and that just as we are suffering, they are suffering. We then extend that to more and more neutral people and then even enemies. But we have to begin recognizing the recognition of suffering as being our state of being, the recognition of the difficulties of life, the recognition of impermanence, the recognition of the struggles that are faced in life. All of those things are important. If we don't recognize those for ourselves, we're not going to recognize them towards others. When you try to apply them to specific individuals, you will not be able to actually generate these attitudes towards anyone if you just do it generally. But once you have a transformative experience towards an individual in your meditation practice, you may then gradually increase the number of individuals you visualize within your meditation. Finally, take all beings in general as your object of meditation. When you sustain this practice in meditation, you will generate these attitudes correctly, whether you are dealing with individuals or a group. So the way to cultivate compassion is as follows. Consider how these living beings, your mothers, experience general and specific suffering after falling into cyclic existence. Moreover, if you have developed an awareness of your own general and specific suffering by training in the paths of a person of medium capacity, you will assess your own situation and cultivate compassion towards others. So here, right, just to go back and talk about Tsongkhapa talks about beings, the three scopes of practitioner. The lesser scope practitioner seeks a better future rebirth. So this is to enter the spiritual journey or path. What defines you as being someone on the path is that you are not working towards happiness within this life. Your real preoccupation, your real goal is towards a better rebirth. You recognize that to devote yourself to a better life in this life is futile. You're only going to get older and you're going to die, and that's really not the. Yes, Johnny, I'm sorry. What can I tell you? That's just the way it is.
Actually,
Yeah, okay, right,
actually, they call that probably that as a strength.
This idea of the individual is very important because when he starts with a friend, you have to bring up that same intimacy when he says extended, you have an intimate feeling towards a friend and you really don't want them to suffer. I guess he's hinting that we should turn on that intimacy as we go down across the board to the neutral, to the ones we hate, but bring it up and then to the world. And I don't know, remember Eugene said he looked at Chola the first time and he saw this was the kindest person in the world. It'll show on your face and people will, I think some of these lamas, it shows on their face that they look at you and they really feel, you really feel that they're helping you more than anyone else has ever. It's amazing. I mean, the rest of them. But the individual is the key to the technique. Don't just mail it in. Yeah, everybody should. Yeah.
So we have to work on the individual in developing equanimity, recognizing that each individual wishes to be happy and wishes not to suffer in the same way that I do. And that is something that we should really start our day by thinking. In the morning when we get up, if we think that just as I wish to be happy and wish not to suffer, this person, think of an individual, wishes to be happy and wishes not to suffer. Just as I wish to be happy and wish not to suffer, and go through people who are close to you, and then go beyond them to people who are neutral, and then go beyond them to people who are sort of troublemakers, and really recognize that all that motivates them is a wish to be happy and wish not to suffer. And then go out and think of the squirrels and the mice and the mosquitoes. Each one is motivated only by a wish to be happy and wish not to suffer. And, there are plenty of people on our horizon whom we have great dislike for. But if we recognize that what motivates them is simply a wish to be happy and wish not to suffer, somehow that changes the dynamic slightly, just a little bit. And that's enormous. That little switch. But we can't feel, okay, I've done that. No, we have to do it every day, every single day.
And is that the visual, like, kind of meditation that you were speaking to earlier? Like to envision these people in your mind as you're meditating? Yeah.
But one at a time. You eventually can make them a little more, but you start with individuals. You start with individuals whom you're close to. You recognize that they wish to be happy just the way you do. And then you go to the neutral people, and then you go to the people. And that's just to create a sort of, let's say, a flat equanimity is a feeling. If you engage in the practice of cultivating compassion without developing equanimity, without having a sort of equal feeling towards friends and enemies, then you will have compassion towards those whom you're fond of. And you won't really have it for real towards those whom you dislike. So you have to work at developing that. And you have to work towards developing true compassion for those who are enemies, the bad guys in your sort of world vision. You have to recognize that they are the victims of their own afflictive emotions. They are the victims of their own ignorance. They are the victims of their desire for fame or their desire for money or whatever it is. And you develop compassion towards that. You're not going to say, oh, it's not that you are working towards liking them. It's that you're working towards developing a wish to have those negative attributes, to have them free of those negative attributes. That attitude brings about your determination. Becomes something you can do. You can't change them, but you can change your attitude towards them. You can recognize that recognition that what motivates them is simply their wish to be happy, and that they are the prisoners of their afflictions. That will automatically open your heart towards them, and that's the point. Then, in terms of really developing, let's say, an ultimate quality of responsibility, the recognition that there really isn't much that we can do, the recognition that we're very limited in what we can do to help others, is what causes the determination to work towards developing the skills by which we can help others, devoting ourselves to the cultivation of the wisdom that enables us to truly benefit others, etc. So,
The
Helpful.
skills.
Yeah. I think sometimes when I am frustrated with someone else, I tell myself, just like them. It feels like it doesn't penetrate that kind of to the compassion point. And what you're saying feels like it does. But the kind of facade of feeling like, oh, well, it's okay, they're fine. They're actually just nice, but I'm just making it up or something like that. It's fleeting. It goes away quickly, and then I don't like them again. But the understanding that you have to cultivate, it's not trying to like someone, but cultivating the compassion to understand that we all just are trying to be happy it makes a lot of sense.
And that they are the victims of their own afflictive emotions. That really helps.
Yeah.
And, we have to recognize that we are the victims
Yeah,
of
yeah,
afflictive
yeah,
emotions.
of course.
We're going at happiness the wrong way. It's
Well,
going back.
what you're saying too is we have to recognize this, but we don't have to necessarily act on that.
Well, the more we recognize it, the more it will be an impetus to
It just
act on it.
happens, right.
Yeah.
And the method of the way we act on it will be that much more effective,
Yeah.
will be that much wiser. So when we talk about a bodhisattva, what is a bodhisattva? A bodhisattva is someone who recognizes his or her limitations and out of this great compassion for others and wish to help them, works towards his or her enlightenment so that he or she can better help others. So the whole aim of the bodhisattva is to attain the ability to most effectively benefit others.
So it's self-improvement, basically, to do that. Okay. I'm still stuck in the situation of trying to love everybody, doesn't mean I have to like them.
That's the, what do you used to, all the life coaches tell you.
You know what I mean? In
Yeah,
other
but
words, I see
Love
the
and Buddhism
faults,
is
et
a
cetera,
different
but deep down inside I understand this is what is really there. And I love you for that, but at the same time, because of your reflections and emotions and things that you're putting out, doesn't mean I have to like you.
I think that what you were saying was that
Trying to figure
if
it
I
out.
work towards simply liking,
Yeah, it's kind of irrelevant almost if you do, even if you do like them, maybe. Like or not like, or at least in what I'm understanding you're saying. It feels almost irrelevant and that
To the technique, yes.
yeah, you're right, and the compassion point is the necessity, maybe?
What how they are, disagree with her opinions or
Oh, yeah.
thoughts, instead of dislike, just don't we disagree, maybe that's a less,
By not like, I
Less-
don't mean hate.
yeah,
I don't
you
mean
just
that.
disagree.
I just, no.
If I think about it, I almost think that sometimes when I really like someone, compassion can evaporate too, or something.
Attachment,
Yeah, like I think that they're so great that I have no frame of reference for what their needs are or something. Or at least I can speak for my own, yeah. And so it almost feels like if I really like them or if I really don't like them, they can both kind of lead down a similar path or something. But then if I consider what you're saying in terms of compassion, it feels like that is actually a different topic altogether and kind of transcends like or dislike on some level.
yes, yeah.
and this process is something that we do on our own.
Right.
This is done in meditation. But I mean, we can't apply this as we're walking through life unless we sit and work at it, and bring our minds to this day after day after day, so that we will, when we confront others,
Yeah.
actually think in these ways. It doesn't happen naturally. It has to be worked at.
True.
Right, buddy?
Many times.
He just stopped and looked at you.
That was really funny.
So I'm going to go back to this. The way to cultivate compassion is as follows. Consider how these living beings, your mothers, in other words, every living being has in the past been our mothers. So Tsongkhapa refers to our mother living beings, experience general and specific suffering after falling into cyclic existence. So within the state of being in cyclic existence is one of experiencing suffering. if you have developed an awareness of your own general and specific suffering by training in the path of the person of medium capacity, the person of, the person of medium capacity is the person seeking his or her own freedom from cyclic existence, freedom from suffering. You will assess your own situation and cultivate compassion towards others. By following this method, so once you have, in the training that Tsongkhapa lays out, as I was saying, the initial stage is to wish for a better life. The medium stage of practice, a person of medium capacity seeks not simply a better rebirth, but seeks freedom from cyclic existence, freedom from this situation of suffering, the vicious circle of suffering that we live in within cyclic existence. So by training in that, you have to recognize your state of suffering. You then apply that to others. You realize that each and every other person is experiencing that same form of suffering. And having recognized the suffering that you're experiencing, you then recognize that others are experiencing the same thing. Considering your own suffering creates the determination to be free. Thinking about others' suffering creates compassion. However, if you do not first consider your own suffering, you will not reach the key point of the practice. So it's essential that we recognize our own suffering. So though we are talking about compassion right now within someone who's going to really practice this has to initially work towards developing renunciation. And renunciation is something that comes about as a recognition, after a recognition of our own state of suffering. If I recognize the state of suffering that I'm in, I will then renounce my preoccupation with cyclic existence. I will work towards attaining freedom from cyclic existence, from the state of suffering. Once I have truly recognized the state of suffering that I'm in, and even Buddy here is experiencing it in, all his meowling is simply
That was me.
an expression of his frustration within cyclic existence.
Right.
Uh,
And lack of going out.
we then have the material. We recognize that every other person is experiencing that same state of suffering within cyclic existence, and that becomes the basis for compassion. If you do not first consider your own suffering, you will not reach the key point of the practice. There are simple illustrations of how to meditate. Intelligent persons should meditate in detail on the 110 sufferings that are observed with compassion. These are explained in Asanga's Bodhisattva levels. Furthermore, it is said that the Bodhisattva's thoughts of suffering during their cultivation of compassion are more numerous than. All right, so the person who is working towards attaining freedom from his own state of suffering is noticing less qualities of suffering than the person who is working towards attaining full enlightenment in order to alleviate the suffering of all others. So, just to be complete about this, the being of the lesser scope practitioner seeks a better life in the future, rebirth in one of the higher realms of existence, particularly the human realm. To be reborn in a human realm is extraordinary. We are meant to recognize how fortunate we are to be humans, to be reborn as a human being one time after another is particularly extraordinary because while we are here right now, we waste this opportunity so terribly. Good evening, sir.
Hello.
Um,
Getting started.
So the first aim is towards attaining a better rebirth in the future so that we can continue our spiritual practice. The second is a recognition that anywhere in cyclic existence has as nature as its suffering, suffering as its nature, and you develop the determination to get out of cyclic existence altogether. The third level is the recognition that everyone else is suffering the same way we are, and we work towards attaining a state of omniscience where we can really effectively benefit others. So those are the three levels of practice. And here, what we are aiming towards is cultivating the compassion by which will motivate us to seek that ultimate state of enlightenment to be able to benefit others. We work towards recognizing our own suffering. We work towards recognizing that others are suffering the same way we are. We work towards attaining a state where we can relieve them of their suffering. That's
That's our job. It's all, what do you call, he always calls them marching orders.
those are our marching orders. That is, but we can't simply consider them marching orders. I think that we have to cultivate a feeling of responsibility. If they are marching orders, when the general's not there pushing us, or the master sergeant is not,
I hate them.
we have to really work at cultivating that sense of responsibility.
Just to repay people, if we think about it, to pay back. Especially the teachers that are teaching us.
Well, no,
Miracle,
we have to work at it not with the motivation of paying back the teachers who are teaching us. We have to work at it by really recognizing the suffering nature of our lives, recognizing the way in which others are suffering in the same way, recognizing how dependent we are on them for our survival, thereby developing a feeling of responsibility towards them, and like that. I think that's...
It's like rooted in our own, in the acknowledgement of our own suffering,
Yes,
right?
that's fundamental.
Right.
If we do not recognize our own suffering, we are not going to
And
recognize...
the recognition of it actually kind of produces the understanding that others also have it, and by understanding that, then you want to take it away, right?
And by understanding that and recognizing how limited we are in our ability to take it away, we
have to work
determine
it
to...
very hard, right, in order to do what we can, essentially,
skillfully.
right? Right.
So, how are you this evening? Good, good.
Any questions, Darren?
No.
You've pushed the button. What is it? The subscribe button.
We have,
Yes.
we have a snack button.
Okay, I think that we've. So we read this Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. We are recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, the doctrine, the Dharma, and the Sangha of the spiritual community.
Gene, you want one? Thank you very much.
We're being asked to pray for Tony Bromwell
Romwell?
And Günther Hoffmann.
and Günther Hoffmann.
That's the one that I mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know why they came to my mind.
I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagava, Tathagata, Arhat, Samyak Sambuddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long for with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddhas, Bhagavats, who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavan. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavad teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavad, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great Jnana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a whole field of
merit and possess virtue.
I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the teacher. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore their fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. Now let's read the prayer for a swift return of Chunglan Rinpoche. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lobsang Tuwan Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers. Lord of speech of the Victor Losang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence ends to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return to the realm of the Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta, drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings, and wish-fulfilling jewel, return as the glory of Losang Tempe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayama, and Srimati Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face.